Welcome, everyone. I am Angelo Robles, and welcome to my family office TV. As you all know by now, I'm also the founder of SFO Continuity, and I have multiple brands, including my family office master. Underneath that, you could all learn about me at angelorobles.com and follow me on any of my social platforms where there is unique content specific to each platform. Today, as we broach to the end of the summer and march very quickly to September 1st, I can't believe it. I am going to talk about residency and passport optionality, an overview for wealthy U.S. families and family offices. Now, this is meant to be more from the perspective of U.S., but a lot of the principles and broadly a lot of the things we'll be talking about are absolutely applicable for many of you in any part of the world. So, one, this has always been a subject as a global traveler and one who appreciates the world and all it has to offer that is of interest to me, but it's especially pertinent today because just a little while ago, and this will be a short overview, but just a little while ago, I wrapped up a significant, well, short by my standards, 1 hour interview with two of the leading thought leaders, one who I've known for many, many, many years, the iconic Phil Strassler. Phil's such a great thinker and thought leader for many decades in the family office world, and I greatly appreciate him and his mentorship over the years. But the two folks I had a chance to interview are Mel Warshaw and David Lesperance. I thought it was excellent. I wish I had a little more time, but I always do. And if you're wondering, Angelo, you're doing kind of a brief overview here. Where could I learn more? I will be getting that link, I would say within 48 more hours, that I'm more than happy to share with you all heading into, I guess, August 31st, possibly September 1st at the latest. So simply DM me and I'm happy to share. But this is a subject so dear to my heart because one of my master classes, probably the one that I may be most passionate about because it's so unique, and no one is doing something like it, is sovereign risk and disaster preparedness for effectively for billionaires, or of course, those that want to be. So that is something I've been working on for years. And this subject is a part of it. It's actually still under 10% of it, but it's kind of important. So without further ado, I will begin at least a little bit of a dive in. So we'll agree the world is what? It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Ambiguity. There is more going on in the world that you don't know than you know. And it's very important to realize that. It's extraordinary that the single family office should be protecting against the risk associated with governance, compliance, regulatory, sovereign, which is the main focus today in cyber, because these risks to a degree could be mitigated and sometimes prevented. So where does that leave us? That leaves us as a US citizen. So I'm not going to talk today as much from the perspective, go to my live I did about 2 weeks ago with Mark Moss, where we did touch upon some of these subjects, a little bit more applicable to here in the US. Why you would still be in California, New York, Massachusetts, and effectively starting businesses, especially with employees domiciled in those states, I have no idea. But you know what? If you have the resources, you can live where you want to live and do what you want to do, and I applaud you. And by the way, I've loved New York City for many years. I think Chicago's pretty awesome too. And there's not a more beautiful overall state in terms of topography and diversity than California. It's awesome. But is that a place where, looking at it from being exceptionally affluent, especially more with earned income, especially from a variety of perspectives, I could argue, including divorce, and from other perspectives, including the business climate and the taxation, those are not great states. Of course, you all know I love Wyoming, South Dakota for the ultimate in privacy, and that's why Mr. Wonderful of Shark Tank speaks glowingly about the Dakotas, I believe, especially South Dakota, as being a wonderful hub, especially starting a company, educated workforce, very low crime, excellent in terms of the pricing and affordability, infrastructure, I'd say underrated. I love Florida and Texas too, but the costs are going up and up. And there's other challenges that you may have there. But I did not want to make this a state domicile here in the US discussion, but figured, since some of you were asking, that I'd at least touch upon it. So this goes to the bigger point of we're proud, of course, to be American citizens. And there's a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot to want to stay here. It could be the bond of being a patriot, the bond of our family, and there's many advantages to being here in the US. I'll put it this way, without a doubt, there are more people looking to come here than there are looking to leave. But, and again, I talk about this with Mark Moss. Look up that interview on Family Office TV in the live section. There are reasons where you absolutely, it's part of your job to have optionality. Could things go wrong? Look at what went wrong in so many different points in history. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, English Reformation, I can name others. What happens to a lot of the rich, unless you're arguably the most elite of the elite, the royals? You kind of get wiped out. How about that? That's pretty bad. So we're in a unique world now. Look at the advances over the last 100 years, especially last 20 or 30. So it's more nuanced, more complex, and to some degree, more dangerous now than ever before. So yes, there are things that could go wrong. Ask the Canadian truck drivers. Although it didn't quite go to the point where they actually did it, I don't believe, but look at what could have happened to them and those around them. Your accounts frozen, possibly seized. Here in the US, we had a major banking scare just a couple of months ago. We have tremendous political bifurcation. We have an election upcoming where no matter what side loses, probably going to be very upset. And again, I spoke about, I can make a hell of an argument that we are in a cold civil war now. We hope it doesn't turn hot, but there's lots of forces at work. And I know some things that I can't say in more of a public forum, but why don't I repeat a little bit of what I said earlier? There's more going on in the world that you don't know, even as a billionaire, even as someone who's connected, than you know. So then that begs the question. Now, we all know part of the challenge of being a US citizen and even getting second and multiple citizenships abroad, AKA passports, you're not really going to get the tax arbitrage. And we're like among the only countries in the world where that's going to be very limited. Most other countries, it really is going to be more based around sourced income. So the challenge with remaining a US citizen is the fact that you're not going to get the tax arbitrage that others would get. And if you think for a moment that taxes don't matter, you are crazy. I agree. And I've been telling many of you, especially those that are newer to the family office community, you're so focused on investments, and investments are exciting. Investments are absolutely important. But the number one threat to families is the family. That is the number one threat. Now, that would be more in my JU's discussion, which is up there on Family Office TV. So we're not going to talk as much about that. But really underrated is the impact of taxes and effectively the estate plan and that value to a family to remain a generational family. And I go back to that word you all know that I like to use, having been in this business for decades and known some amazing families. It's family continuity. Now, this is a part of it. And again, relatively a brief discussion today. So from that perspective, I am not going to get the tax arbitrage being an American citizen and owning assets offshore, having residency offshore, and ultimately having a diversity of passports. But is it still valuable to me? I would go as far as to say, as you're probably an idiot, if you don't take proactive action to understand that things could absolutely go wrong. In time, every company goes to zero. No investment's going to last forever. A company you think is going to be around for what, 200 years, probably isn't. So things go wrong. The world is changing. What, from a unipolar world to now we're heading into a unipolarity where there's going to be various challenges to the global economy. We're seeing the fractions now, the US and China, the US, China, and Russia, the BRICS. We have massive deficits in this country. We don't have the revenues to offset it. We probably don't want hyperinflation to offset it, do you? That could create its own set of challenges. There is no easy way out. We have an aging population. We have massive pension obligations, which are not going to be able to be met. We are in for a world of hurt. Now, not the discussion today, per se, is it worse elsewhere in the world? Probably. So again, there's more people wanting to get in the US than there's looking to get out. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't hedge your bets, that you shouldn't have diversity, probably a word that I like, optionality. So absolutely, you should own businesses offshore. You should have bank accounts and custodial relationships outside of the US. You should establish real estate and residency. And again, this is for the super, super, super rich. I get it. But there's lessons to be learned for many of you. And again, the consideration of passports, even without the tax arbitrage. Now, there are little nuances of that, but beyond the scope of our discussion today. So then, as we go around the world, what do we look at? So there's certain things to consider because there are different ways that people acquire a second or multiple citizenships. Birth through parents, distant relatives, possible, law of return, naturalization, or probably most commonly through quote unquote investment. So if I start in Europe, and maybe I'll use me as an example. How about that? I'm half Italian heritage. What a surprise with a first name like Angelo. Italy is a beautiful country, amazing culture, food, and people. Very interesting, incredibly bureaucratic. I don't like that. It's imperfect. And don't think for a second, now, again, if you were to give up your US citizenship, a different story, but the tax benefits for an American citizen are actually pretty good, a lot better than you might have thought because Italy made some adaptations. But the bigger picture point for me, do I have a cultural advantage or an opportunity of going there and becoming a citizen? The answer is yes. Certain countries will limit you going back no more than 3 generations. Actually, Italy's a little bit more loose about that relative to, again, your cultural heritage. Now, this does require the opportunity of engaging with the right legal talent, both domestically and internationally in that country. And again, a lot of being successful in the family office community, it's who you know, and it's the relationships that you have. What is the biggest value that I bring? Is it my 20 years of experience, my depth of knowledge? Well, sure, those are not unimportant, but the depth of my relationships and that believe and trust in me and me in them and all I've learned and the connections that I made, often meeting them through literally the world's most affluent billionaires and knowing that they're really, really good, but never assuming. We all need to adapt and things do change. So Italy is a very interesting country. What I also like about it is it's close. Well, part of it depends on what part of Italy, but you're close to getting into Switzerland if you have to. Now, why did I phrase it that way? Now, if we would have had this discussion decades ago, it was basically Switzerland or bust, right? We all know the super rich would look at Switzerland as being a haven, even for taxes. Now, that for a US citizen has been kind of debunked. That is not the route. You don't want to do that. But for other purposes, here's what I'll tell you, me giving you some insight into billionaires and the super rich. Boy, they really seem to like Switzerland, especially those around the world that are non-US, but even the US. They want to have a business interest, a residency, some resources, some relationships there. And if they could, now becoming a citizen is a 10-year process and has negatives to it. but could you be a resident of Italy or an EU resident and get access and still create businesses and opportunities in Switzerland? The answer is absolutely yes. And if you want to become a citizen, it'll take forever, or feels that way, but it's intriguing and there are advantages. And again, I go back to, why are people worth billions and billions and sometimes tens of billions and sometimes secretly more? Why are they often wanting to get in Switzerland or Basel, Switzerland? Ooh, the Bank of International Settlements is there. Do central banks run the world? Probably. Now, I've also worked with families on effectively buying banks in Switzerland with some relationships I have. Not the topic of the discussion today, but just broadly noting that this could kind of get complex. But someone I know who's an incredibly incredible family, it's like, I don't really want to live in Switzerland, but I love Italy. That's easier. And I have access to what I need in Switzerland if the shit hits the fan. And that's what I hear, is Switzerland almost a little bit of, what's the John Wick movies where that hotel, you're not supposed to attack people in that hotel? Is Switzerland potentially a little bit of that? I don't know, but it's intriguing. Now, there are some things I know that I'm not going to say in more of a public forum. And again, this comes from my experience and who I know and thoughts that I have and things that I do more privately or with members and relationships who are part of what I do. So I think Ireland's intriguing. Bulgaria would be a little bit out of the blue. But again, for a variety of reasons, a cultural heritage or family linear heritage in many different countries is probably going to be, for many of you, the lowest hanging fruit. Well, let us surprise, many countries potentially, because of declining populations, want people who are rich and successful, people who may be building businesses, absolutely. So they have opportunities to go there, and whether through bonds, real estate, or business interest, you're kind of buying your way in, for lack of a better word. Portugal is a beautiful, beautiful country. I love Portugal, and great food, great people, to me, great weather. And now they have adapted some of their golden visa program a little bit, but still it's going to be potentially an attractive country to look at. I think Poland actually is very, very underrated. Now, what's the top tax rate there? I guess probably 19%. So I'm not going to say it's perfect from a tax perspective. Now, again, for a US citizen, that's not really going to matter because you get the IRS, of course, that follows you everywhere. But the rest of the world doesn't have to worry about that quite as much. So Europe is pretty incredible. I like Scandinavia, great people. It's kind of cool. Don't always know if I like the winters. A little too socialistic for my taste, but do I like going there in spurts? And come on, who doesn't love going to Sweden? Of course I do. I have my reasons. So Europe is very intriguing. Caribbean for US families, probably the lowest hanging fruit and probably going to be the most cost effective, sometimes buying your way in effectively for 150 to 200,000. And I haven't kept up on it the last month or so as much as I did in the past. But St. Lucia, St. Kitts, there's going to be others, but there's Dominica, there's a variety of programs that are going to be cost effective. And again, it's an option. It's relatively, well, not relatively, it is close to the US. So that could be an advantage. I think Mexico is interesting. Now, there's more of the super rich under the current regime that is probably looking to get more opportunities here in the US. But again, that's what I said earlier. But that doesn't mean that Mexico, for a US-centric family having multiple diverse global assets, residency, and passports, it may not make the rotation. Why not? You've got $1 billion floating around. You could afford to throw down some money into bonds and real estate or other interest. Again, money talks. You want to become a citizen of a country, for the most part, well, there are going to be some exceptions that we're going to talk about. You could, period. But I think Mexico is, I'm going to call it a bit underrated. Now, broadly speaking, in LATAM, probably Uruguay and Panama, there's nothing perfect. At the end of the day, it's going to depend on you. It's not just taxes. Now, that's less of an issue if you're still going to remain a US citizen. There's a variety of other factors that you may consider for, again, lifestyle and Optionality. In case something were to go wrong, don't you want to have opportunities on all continents, including Africa? Now, I haven't done as much research as I would like to do. What I would narrow down to my opportunities in Africa. But the days of getting off the grid, that's long gone. And now what? We're going to have central bank digital currencies and this and that. It's going to get harder and harder. And by the way, if you have questions, bring them on. This will probably only be about 10 or 15 more minutes. It's meant to be more short form. Hopefully you find it valuable. I do like Uruguay. It's generally been stable. It's been respectful of more libertarian views and privacy and perspective. There's, again, some other reasons. Chile's, well, that's probably going a little bit downhill lately. And Panama has challenges, but also is intriguing from certain aspects as well. Of course, New Zealand and Australia are beautiful. I get it. And if that is your vibe and what you want, of course, having optionality there. They've cracked down a little bit, but again, high level money, like really in that case, high level money, quote unquote, does talk. What I wouldn't like about it is, again, a little bit too, not quite as much the libertarian perspective. And that is what America is changing, sadly, and hopefully we could do something about it. But that perspective of privacy and freedom is a little bit unique to American culture that probably goes back way back in the day to the Scots and others, quote unquote, coming here. And although I'm not of that heritage, my mindset is very about freedom. That's why I love Wyoming. I love my cowboy hat. I love other things, some things I would prefer not to say, more of a public forum. But I like the opportunity of kind of sovereignty as much as I could while still paying the US government what is owed to them. So I want it to work here. But again, I go back to optionality. And I don't know if New Zealand and Australia, great people, great cultures, I don't know if it fits. I felt like Australia did in the past. I think less so now. Now, that does bring up our friends to the north. Canada, beautiful country, good friend to the US, amazing people, very friendly for the most part. It's the government. It's not for me. Does that mean it doesn't have things that are valuable? And again, give me a gazillion dollars. Could I just throw it down? Whatever, here's 10 million to a bond. Let's work on it. How am I legal? Get me a passport. Sure. It's probably not going to be among the first options. But again, I would not discount either Canada or Mexico. Wouldn't totally discount New Zealand. Some opportunity in Africa and LATAM and in Europe. Now, I know this sounds like a lot. When shit hits the fan, then it's hard to get things done. You have to do the planning before the problem. Money and time. Well, that goes, what's part of my tenement that I always talk about? All we have is energy and we have our time. And money is simply, to some degree, how it's allocated or the consequence of it. So these things are laborious. They're paperwork centric. They will cost money from multiple perspectives, but you get it over with. I have diversity and custodians around the world in multiple continents. I have multiple banking relationships. I have crypto and other relationships around the world. I own income producing businesses around the world. I have resources. I didn't even talk about a network that you build up that is global, that is incredibly powerful. Residencies, real estate, and again, leading towards, in my example, passports and second and multiple citizenships. Now, I'm not going to get into, renouncing your U.S. citizenship, but in case you're wondering, there's a variety of factors, but generally that's looking like a 23.8% hit to your finances. Being really, really rich, ouch, that's going to hurt. But for some, it just may be worth it. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying, for some, it may be a choice that they make as a sovereign individual to make their own choice, at least as much as we can be sovereign in today's world. I see some of the comments coming in. I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page, but I do want to reiterate, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, beautiful. I love going there. Great people. I met some of the best relationships I've ever known, actually, in all three of those countries. I just don't know, given that I skew to being very protective of personal freedoms and privacy, that those are going to be the best countries in for me. But that doesn't mean it won't necessarily be a great country for you guys. Some of you are mentioning like Gibraltar, and I didn't even mention Malta, although things are changing. But those could be easy steps into EU in Malta's case, and the opportunity then having the freedom and flexibility to basically go all around Europe and have easier travel. Now, we didn't even get into, if you're limited to only even being a billionaire, a US passport, what happens if something like COVID happens again? Travel lockdowns. You are locked down. Shockingly, of all countries, Sweden, who's like a socialistic country, allowed levels of freedom that we never would have thought. That gave me a little bit more respect for Sweden in terms of respecting a little bit of self-sovereignty more than I would have thought. I don't know if that slipped backwards a little bit the last couple of years, but kudos. I do tip my imaginary hat to them for what they did. So again, optionality, freedom of movement. Now, this is not the setting for me to get into what happens if there's a major issue, what happens if my accounts are frozen, what happens if they pull my US passport, I don't have others. You've got a problem if that's the case, which is what I said a couple of minutes ago, the time to plan. And it's a lot of work, which is time, and it is going to cost money. But if you wait until it's so self-evident or beyond that, then no amount of money may work, or the cost will be 50x. And I may not be kidding. Like, it literally may cost like hundreds of millions of dollars if things get really, really bad. Which is why these are the things I work on with billionaires. It's not just creating or reimagining a family office, but a part of that family office is the issues on sovereign risk and disaster preparedness, and getting very, very deep on it. I think many of you heard that I had one of the projects that I did for a family actually included looking into a submarine. No, I am not kidding. In 5 or 10 more years, what do you think that's going to transition to? The moon, Mars, space? Of course, absolutely. Which is why you need to adapt. I need to adapt. I learn more every day. And like a good poker player, sometimes what I thought in the past might have been accurate and now it's not, or maybe it was just completely wrong and I was wrong, and I got to adapt moving forward. So these are the things, if you're servicing the family office community, that no one is talking about, that you probably don't have a great knowledge set on, but you could by, of course, being a part of my programs. And if you're a family member, either a creator or an inheritor or an SFO executive, you've got to get up to snuff on this. These are really, really important topics. Now, we didn't really get into, I may save it for more of the legal folk, the two that I mentioned in my interview that I did with on Phil Strassler's program, which again will be available, if not tomorrow, then just DM me for Friday and I'll send you a link. And even then, it's not my normal 2 hours. In my more deeper dives, it was an hour, but it was a good hour. But we do talk about things like green cards. Now, that is also going to be a challenge. Foreigners coming here, getting a green card, well, welcome. You're now a part of the US tax system. Good luck getting away from it. There are strategies that the right people could do. And I know there's advantages to wanting to come here more than other countries. For the most part, I get it. But that doesn't mean that it's not without a consequence, wrapping you up into the long, long arm of the US tax system. Or how about fair maiden here in the US, wealthy family, goes abroad, falls in love with a wonderful, let's call it an Italian gentleman. Of course, how about that? And now gets married, and the complications there, and where you're going to live, and married in and coming here to the US. Man, these are deep issues. There is, for a family of wealth and resources that prides themselves on the opportunity for family continuity, these are complex issues, which is why if you're more servicing the community in legal, accounting, and finance, you got to work as part of a team. This is complex. You're probably not good enough now, but you could be. You got to be the ultimate in terms of being competent, identify your blind spots, move your ego aside, and keep on learning. and it's changing so quick. It's really, really, really hard. But building a network of amazing thinkers and thought leaders, or buying your way into that network, it's valuable. And I go back to, you wait to the last second, it's either not going to be available, period, or its cost is going to be crazy. It's bad enough now. I get it. But now is the time that you want to learn about it, form your thesis, and make a decision and take action. And these are the things that I've been, for many, many years, as I've created over 20 family offices, or reimagined, quote unquote, and have dealt with well over 100 with more critical thinking and deep thinking. These are the topics that are uncomfortable. Maybe they're not quite as sexy. Those around you, you've heard me talk about gatekeepers before. They often gatekeep the world from those they serve because they're dependent on the loyalty of the person they're serving. I question whether they're really doing the best that they could. So this is also one of the reasons why sometimes my preference is to deal directly with the wealth creator, which I often do. That being said, I respect those that service the community. I think many of them are well-meaning, and I believe there's just value that me and my team and my network and my relationships, my dream team, as I've been calling it, could certainly help with. So these are really, really important issues. We probably didn't dive as deeply into the green card issue as I would like, and that gets complicated. Now you're bringing in not just someone who's an expert from a legal perspective, and there's not a lot of them that are good. A lot of those that are experts on second citizenship and passports, there's commissions being paid, there's some bad shit going on. Like, you don't know about that. You got to know who the real players are who are really good. But then you got to integrate perhaps US planning, international in that specific country, coupled with tax and tax stuff, because the system wants it that way, get very, very complicated. And many of you, as a family office or ultra high net worth person, if you were to get a hardcore audit from the IRS, the SEC, and who knows, the Department of Justice, you're probably messing some things up really bad. You're just lucky that they're really busy. But if you're wealthy enough, you're probably to some degree on their radar. And again, look at how things are heading politically in this country. Look at the bifurcation. Look at what could go wrong. Does that mean it's going to go wrong? No. But I don't know, pre-COVID, I might have thought like under 1%. Now I know the odds are a hell of a lot more than that. And importantly, again, think poker. Maybe the odds are still barely under 10%. That still is scary enough for what are the consequences should that happen. The pain that I may feel. We didn't even get into dollar-denominated assets losing a lot of their value. What's going to happen to your stock portfolio, your bank account, your treasury? Suppose the US can't meet its obligation. Should you have diversity in various currencies? Which one? Man, that is why I have a job in my sovereign risk and disaster preparedness. So that is one of my core master classes. That one is being taught in December, right after Art Basel, because of course I have to go to Miami first, in Naples, Florida, actually. So the more quiet West Coast. And it's kind of up on my website, angelorobles.com. You could inquire, you could learn more. I take a very, very limited number of participants. There is no vendors paying me to be a vendor to speak, no sponsors. It is 100% conflict free. I want the right people there. That could be a creator, could be an inheritor, could be an entrepreneur on the rise, could be an SFO executive, a wannabe SFO executive, or someone who wants to get better servicing the community, and an opportunity for them to pay. And I'm a premium. And to get the opportunity to get deeply educated over a couple of days. And I do not have a digital version of this at the moment. Within a year, that may change, but nothing beats kind of being together for 4 days, face-to-face, immersive, answering questions and adapting even what I'm doing to the questions and the case studies and the things that I'm doing in my dream team that I'm bringing in. So again, you all know how to reach out to me. I hope you're enjoying some of these lives and recordings that I'm doing. And again, I feel there's not many. I don't need to rely on only a guest. a guest is great. I agree. It's diversity of opinion and a specific niche and an expertise. But if you're a thought leader in the family office community, you got to be able to espouse on a variety of subjects, have confidence and knowledge, and more important, competency in those subjects, and have a great opportunity to educate, to be a teacher, and to have an incredible Rolodex of the world's leading authorities that I mainly meet when I meet billionaires. Who's your accountant? Who's your attorney? Who should I know? Who's your banker? Could you make the introduction? And having done that for decades, you're able to build a powerful, powerful network. You could probably do it on your own. You could probably do it quicker than I did because you're better and smarter than me. But why? Why take 10 or 20 years when potentially you could expedite that? I could argue maybe 80% in days and probably 90 to 95% over a couple of months. So the choice is yours. You all know how to reach me at angelorobles.com. We hope you're enjoying these. Reach out, DM me. I'm taking a little bit of a look. There's more comments. Okay, that's a good one. Thoughts on any Asian countries? I love Asia. I really enjoyed like Thailand. So Japan's interesting. It's very complex from a tax perspective and a cultural perspective. It could be a little difficult sometimes for an American. I don't know as much on South Korea as I should. I have some familiarity with, again, I mentioned Thailand, which is intriguing. I think China's, well, that could be a loaded one. Amazing people, of course, and what they've done in a short amount of time in decades, you have to tip your cap to some degree. It's pretty intriguing. But obviously, that's not going to be a situation. Their issue is the rich wanting to get out of there, get a green card, and come here. That they're putting a lot of curtails on. So I do agree there are broadly in Southeast Asia, ex-China, intriguing opportunities. I am not as fluid as I am in other regions. I have enough to be dangerous, but I know people who are going to be more fluid in those regions. I mean, I could also think of Hong Kong and Singapore. Singapore, by the way, you have to make that your primary and only citizenship. That's a big process. There could be, if you have younger ones, military involvement. I also have some issues to maybe be concerned about relative to Singapore, but overall, is that one of the countries to have diversity in, from real estate to bank accounts to relationships? Absolutely. We also didn't talk about the Middle East. I think that could be intriguing. I think the United Arab Emirates, specifically Dubai, you got money, you're going to be in a great section. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be modern. And the intellect and talent of people from around the world there is shockingly good. Like, it might be the best concentration. I mean, I could argue I would have said New York or City of London, but times are changing. And again, so Dubai has many, of course, tax benefits, but if you're remaining a U.S. citizen, those aren't going to be as strong. But the big problem is you cannot be a citizen of Dubai, period, or United Arab Emirates, unless you're born there. You could be a resident. You could still own real estate and bank accounts. But anytime the king, at the flip of a switch or feeling like it, could maybe do bad shit and freeze your account, it scares me. But as one of the optionalities from diversity of resources, a network, connections, and possibly real estate, if you have enough money, sure. I think someone also mentioned Israel, which could be a low-hanging fruit if you're of Jewish heritage, in terms of getting the opportunity for a favorable opportunity towards citizenship. So sure, again, things to consider. I do go back to what I said. There appears to still be a fascination, a little bit less so with US billionaires, but those around the world still, and very quietly, Switzerland, Switzerland, Switzerland are the world's most powerful royal families there. Does Switzerland basically rule the central banking kingdom? Could you name who's the prime minister of Switzerland, by the way? Shh, they don't like to be active with that kind of stuff. They're really, really private. God, I'm giving you guys some of my secrets. I got to kind of stop doing that. Let's see. Singapore, I commented on. Yeah, Yeah, but my issue with whatever United Arab Emirates is theoretically the king could change their mind. I mean, again, I still like it. If you have enough resources, you should go there, do business there, own real estate there, open up some accounts, etc. And if you're not a US citizen and more international from a tax perspective, it's awesome. It's through the roof. But I'm saying it's not, there is no one perfect place. And to many people around the world, here in the US is about as perfect as you could get. We tend to be a little critical of our own situation. I mean, our taxes are really not that great here. And again, they do follow you around the world. And we do have all the challenges that I mentioned earlier. But that does beg the question, is it really better in other Western parts of the world? And again, the world is changing. We see the rise of Asia. We see Eastern Europe, although going through some strife now in terms of Ukraine and Russia, of course, but intriguing. And we see what I know we've been talking about it for decades, but I don't know, Africa still holds some interest to me. I think there's some level of promise. Maybe I'm crazy, an opportunity there. Look at the population growth will be so extreme there in certain countries in Africa in the coming decades, just by the law of numbers and the advent of technology. I don't know. I think there's promise there. Maybe I'm talking more from an investment perspective. Boy, and I thought I was going to keep this like 15 minutes. We're what, like 40 minutes in? Actually, a fair amount of questions from people today. Saudi Arabia, one to watch. Again, I loved my visit to the Middle East. It was very warm and welcoming. Dubai was shockingly modern and beautiful, and incredible people of talent in legal accounting and financial, very global in their perspective. I kind of liked everything. And again, I like it. I just believe that it, especially for a US still remaining citizen, which you're not going to get really the tax advantages, it's not the main option that I would lead with. But at the end of the day, and this goes back to, and me and Mark Moss spoke about this in our live that we did a couple of weeks back. When you're rich, okay, you pay a little more taxes, but you're still going to be rich. You do what you want to do. You live where you want to live. But I would still argue you want to have optionality in case things go wrong. And again, you wait to the last second. What did I say 2 or 3 times already? It either becomes impossible or the cost goes up drastically, partially due to the people that could potentially help you. They may be so busy with business that unless you're going to pay them a crazy amount of money, they just may not want to help you because they're putting their own family's interest ahead of yours, which again, kind of comes down to family. Of course, we're going to do that. That's the nature of people. Okay, this will probably be the last one of these I will do this week. We're going to head into September on Friday. So it's shocking how fast, well, we kind of consider the summer, June, July, and August. And we hit Labor Day here in the US on Monday. I look forward to a great barbecue. I'm going to have a great time. Oh, by the way, I did forget to mention one thing that may be intriguing to some of you. I am speaking kind of about these topics. I only get 20 minutes though. Damn, it's going to be hard for me. In person, the Outbound Conference in New York, which is kind of about these issues, is Tuesday, September 12th. I'm the open keynote in the morning. And then I get on a flight that night. I head to LA. And 2 days later, on Thursday, the 14th, also open keynote in the morning. I speak at the Sofitel Hotel in beautiful Beverly Hills in LA. So those are going to be intriguing about diversity away from the US, or those that want to learn more about actually coming here, green card issues, me talking about sovereign risk. I may take a little bit more of a geopolitical spin when I give those conversations. Those will not be recorded, so either you're live or you're not. I think I put up on my LinkedIn a link to the Outbound Conference about a week or 2 ago. I'll do another one shortly. If you want to DM me, I could send you an RSVP link. I think there's still open opportunity available, at least for LA. So I will be talking about those issues. Some of you have also asked, boy, Angelo, I really enjoyed your working in a family office that Russ Allen Prince did an interview with you last week. Russ is awesome. You guys appear to like Russ better than me. And I thought he was the curmudgeon, but I've known Russ for many years. Yeah, Russ is the one where, Russ, would you like to give out your contact information? No, I don't want people to reach out to me. But that's my boy, Russ. That's just how he is. But I gave him the opportunity. But yes, he quoted me recently in Private Wealth magazine. That came out, I believe, on Monday. I also had a feature in Crane's Currency by Kristen Oliveri. I also put that on my LinkedIn. So you could read my little 8-question Q&A that they had with me there, assuming you're even interested. And yes, I will have Russ back, Russ Allen Prince, the author of 50 plus books and definitely a notable figure in the family office world, doing more a Q&A with me, and also me, although he doesn't like to do it as much, some Q&A with him. So stay tuned as we head into the fall. He'll be a little bit more of a frequent guest. So there's lots going on. I'm super excited. I love this community. You could probably hear it in my always enthusiasm. I am 24/7 family office, probably more specifically single family office. Reach out to me, be a part of what we're doing. Go to angelorobles.com. Follow me on all my social medias. Reach out, DM. I look forward to working with you, getting to know you. And again, my master classes, I'm really, really looking to keep super small. And I mean small, like 6, to each of the one in November, the one in December on sovereign risk and disaster preparedness, and even the one in January, which will be in Miami, on family offices and AI, and a really, really deep dive. Ooh, I got some great faculty that's going to be a part of that. There's so much going on. So hopefully you're enjoying these. Be a part of the family office community. Reach out to me anytime. Have a great end of the summer. Thank you all so much.